to At the 55, your home for U Sports football. Me and Tom are back on the mic, live and direct from Warrior Field on the campus of Waterloo University, providing you a little setup for the 2025 Red Black Weekend U18 game. We're going to set up a lot of the great players you're going to be able to catch on the stream, talk about some of the guys we're excited to see. Of course, we have a special guest here that we're going to throw it to in 2 seconds because his time is money. He has places to be, but not before I say, Tom, how the heck you doing, my friend?
One of my favorite people on the planet here. He is the director of culture and sport. Culture being first. JT, is always a pleasure to have you here, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Tom and Doc, for having me on. Always love our time together and always love talking football and, all the fun things associated with it.
Yeah. Well, and JT, obviously, as we said, like, we know that you got a jet and we want to respect that. You've been running this event. You've been seeing the successes, working with various team members, some new faces. What are some of the things going into this weekend that you've been looking forward to the most, given all the work that goes into it, to now see it start to flourish?
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, I would be remiss if we didn't take a moment just to acknowledge all of our partners that have helped make this happen, from the university, from their facility and operation staff to Coach Burt, Coach McNeil, Coach Conway and their staff for helping out, the junior warriors for helping out, our Football Ontario staff, and all of our Team Ontario student athletes, parents, caregivers. Like, this is very much, it takes a village. Without the support of all these great community partners, events like this wouldn't be possible.
And having an experience like this where we have not only just outstanding players, coaches, and everything else, but having an entire community of Football Ontario come together, what's that feel like to somebody like yourself who, in your title, like you were mentioning, looks after culture first and foremost?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, it's one of those things where, one of the things we talk about is community is one of our pillars at Football Ontario. And one thing I always stress, any business, any organization has core pillars or values, right? Anyone can throw those up on a website, but what it really comes back to is, what do those look like in practice? And for us, community is this idea of, how do you invite people to be sort of in this creation building process with you? And with that being said, these events are the best way to do it, because when you create these immersive experiences, it shows community building at its finest. And the really one neat thing, and I would really encourage you to watch these U16s as they come off the field, watch these U18s as they come off the field in a few hours. And there's something awesome that happens where this experience is such a once in a lifetime experience. Even the idea of staying in residence, having a 2-a-day yesterday, having 2 and 3 meetings yesterday, being in residence, eating with these friends from all over the province. There's something that happens here where they're like, oh, this is what it means to be all in. So there is something just organic and beautiful just about creating this experience and creating this vehicle to show them how beautiful this game can be and how it really brings people together.
And I love that you touched on some of those aspects of what it's like to go through a 2-day living in residence. Those are experiences that for a lot of us that get the opportunity to go next level are often so novel, and being able to sort of have that Band-Aid ripped off in this sort of more controlled opportunity is awesome. What I want to ask you about, though, JT, is Team Ontario had a ton of success last year, to say the least. We're talking Canada Cup. This is what this all comes down to.
Yeah.
How does that impact the way that you and your team have prepared, have looked at 2025, knowing that in a lot of respects, you have the target on your back now?
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting. I remember last year when the day after the gold medal win.
Yeah.
And I remember just being hit with just these different emotions, right? I remember being at the point where it did bring some tears. And part of it wasn't because of anything. It wasn't that I was sad, but it was just like, it was this culmination of the last 3 years. And, being able to walk alongside and support, Coach Underhill and seeing him get back to, gold medal after 10 years, and seeing Coach Grandy, Coach Galloway, Coach Sharia, Coach Cap, Coach Irv, right? And seeing all these guys have been so involved in the program, and just seeing them end off being able to go into the proverbial sunset with helping the program get back to where it belongs, that just meant so much, right? And I remember we had a conversation prior to the Canada Cup where a conversation Coach Underhill and I had was in Carleton, where he noticed the pathway in 2014, the last Canada Cup win prior to last year, followed the exact same pathway, the same provinces. So it's really one of those amazing things of just being able to have them right off in the sunset, but being able to cement Ontario back at the top where it belongs. I think for our team, I sort of looked at it as last year, we're only scratching the surface. If anything, I think it's my role in administrator, I thought, hey, we're scratching the surface. How do we run it back? What do I need to do as an administrator to put our coaches, our support staff, and our student athletes, our parents in a spot to where they can be successful? So I think it sort of scratched an itch, and it's kind of like, how do we do better? How do we build off it?
Well, you talk about that old guard that you saw,
Yeah.
guys like Coach Underhill, Coach Herb, and you have a number of those guys who are back here again. But now there's a new head coach,
Yeah.
a new guy, a young kid, and that our guy,
Yeah.
the U of T offensive coordinator Tommy Kanichis, is now the head coach for this. So how do you instill into him the values and what you're looking for in a Team Ontario organization?
Yeah.
While also allowing him to be the great coach that he is, lead this team in his own direction.
Yeah. So I think a big part of that, and part of this search when we were looking for the next head coach was giving Coach Kanichis an opportunity to come on last year and observe. So what many people may not know is Coach Kanichis was actually there in a background observing, and it gave him an opportunity to see what does Coach Underhill and that staff, what do they do really well? Where are those opportunities for Coach Kanichis, like as you said, to put his unique spin on that? So it was really that sort of fact finding last year. And I think what Coach Kanichis has done a great job of is, yes, he had that ability to learn best practices from our previous staff. And he's able to bring sort of his unique, but then he also did a great job there of bringing back Coach Capiello, bringing back Coach Irv, bringing back Coach Donovan Carter. So now it's sort of, celebrating our past, but then creating our future of what is the next iteration of our Team Ontario Youth program look like.
That's a beautiful model to run. And as we're saying this, of course, we're now seeing the U18s begin to take the field. And you're a busy man. You're starting your master's program today. So I have one last question. I'll throw it to Tom afterwards to wrap. You mentioned the all-in aspect of that branding of what we want from this program, what we want for Team Ontario. But there's also that aspect of football for all.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the successes of Team Ontario last year, football in Ontario, and across Canada, it's not just the men's game, the young men that we're seeing today. It's also the young women who are in such larger and larger amounts becoming more involved, not just with the flag football that's growing, and of course, with the Olympics, that's a huge piece, but with the tackle game. We saw them earlier today getting ready for their summer. What's it been like seeing the rapid growth of the women's game as well, alongside with everything else you've been doing?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of been one of the cool things. I think when you ask that question, I think of the scale of this event. We talked earlier about all the community partners, right? That idea of many hands make light work, right? And that's very much fundamental. But when you think here, we had 270 student athletes in the men's tackle space here between U14, U16, U18, right? 12 to 17-year-olds. But then when we add on, you have another 50 of our U18 women's tackle athletes, all their coaches, support staff. I mean, together, you're probably bringing in over 310 just student athletes, probably another 60, 70 coaches and support staff. So it really starts to understand that we're just scratching the surface here, right? So now the question becomes, we piggyback obviously the Red Black Weekend, but now we have the women's development camp. So it's just continuing to build off. I think of you, Tom, being involved with the OSFL Senior Bowl. Like it's just really about creating more of these opportunities, because that's what football for all is. It's about creating opportunities by making things more accessible, and by creating more accessibility. Then that's really what allows people to sort of be involved in this beautiful game.
I guess the very last question that I have for you, and it might be something of a difficult question, but just to get your idea on it.
Yeah.
Of course, when anybody looks at a football game, it's a win and a loss, and that's kind of how you determine how well something's happening here.
Yeah.
With Football Ontario, it's not just that. Obviously, the expectation now with Canada Cup because we won it last year and everything else.
Yeah.
But there's another aspect of what success really looks like.
Yeah.
What does success in your mind look like outside of just winning a championship?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question, right? And I think back to our conversation on the podcast probably about last year, if I remember correctly. You know, when we talk about this with our Team Ontario leaders, it always comes back to this goal. The goal of any time we do something Team Ontario is it's about creating the best development experience possible. And the nice part about that is it's an ongoing journey, right? It's going to look different in 2025 than it did in 2022 or 23 or 24, or when we're having this conversation in 2030 or 2035. So it's one of those where the best part is the work's never going to be done. I think with that being said, and part of that is, yes, it is acknowledging that at the end of the day in high performance sport, you know, the goal is national championship. It is goal. But I think it's how we get there, right? So if we focus as a province on creating the best development experience possible, you're more likely to have them come back next year. And if they come back next year, they're more likely to bring a friend. And if they bring a friend, then all of a sudden your numbers grow. And, you know, being in Ontario, being the largest province in terms of population, if all of a sudden we are having the biggest, the brightest, right, the best student athletes coming here, it's not a question of, hey, are we going to win? We'll always be in that conversation. So again, it's just sort of reprioritizing what we focus on and the lens at which we bring is focus on creating the best development experience possible.
Process over product, spoken like a true educator through and through. JT Suey, Director of Culture and Sport for Team Ontario. Thank you so much, brother. And of course, you're off to the Royal City to start off your new journey with the Master's program. Remind me again what the program is you're doing at Guelph.
Yeah, so it's decided to go back to school. I guess being that proverbial lifelong learner and just going back for my Master's in leadership and just again continuing to be that lifelong learner and smart curiosity.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for sparing some moments of your very, very busy schedule. This day is incredible and only to be getting much better as we get the U18 game kicking off in about a half hour. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
All right,
Appreciate you both.
Thank you, my man. Feel this mic from you. Thank you very much, my friend.
They've traveled. All right. Once again, from Warrior Field at Waterloo University. JT Suey, you can't get any better than that. But we are here with about a half hour to go before the kickoff for the U18 Red-Black game to determine who will be representing our province
My
for
God.
this Canada Cup. Tom, just take us through whether that conversation. We've been here for a few hours, just kind of taking it in, seeing the practices, seeing a bit of the U16 game, a bit of the U14 game. Going through your mind right now, brother?
Well, I am so excited about this being involved in this kind of weekend because it's not just about, of course, you're seeing the football, of course, you're seeing everything else, but it's the culture piece as well. Like JT was talking about, you've got 300 people here who are part of this program from U14, U16, U18 on the men's side to the women's development camps that are here. And just to see such a celebration of football is one of the coolest things in the world to honestly be a part of. I mean, even if you look behind us here, of course you see Team Ontario, they're warming up as a group with the helmets and showcasing where they're from and representing their own brand while also having that Team Ontario on the front. It's so incredible to see. And then you see the litany of other OUA and U Sport coaches that are here who are obviously doing their recruiting and doing their best to try to find the very next student athlete that can help them out. And you see, oh yeah, there's like 40 university coaches here. I guess this is the best of the best in Ontario, and that's going to garner a lot of people. So this is just an awesome celebration of football first and foremost, and I'm so happy to be a part there.
Most certainly, and we'll go through some of the notable names, not only in this game, but from the last couple of years. Just again, in case you don't realize the magnitude of what being in this game could mean in terms of not just the players of today, but of tomorrow when we talk about the U Sports and the OUA ranks. Tom, just thinking about this journey, we were at the ID camp at York a couple months ago. You talk about the sheer numbers and just, again, being there at the University of York and seeing, again, in the hundreds and hundreds of student athletes. JT talked about the great center phrase of many hands makes light work, and seeing all these people that were there. I mean, just thinking back to that, what has this experience been like, seeing just the, again, chaos in not a negative way, but just the nature of having that many people, seeing it come to fruition. darn near incredible how they've been able to facilitate all this.
Well, especially as somebody, as the two of us who are OUA and just football nerds for everything here, but we take track of the game and we listen and we watch and we see. And I remember right before COVID happened, there was a number of schools that were saying, okay, I think we're going to shut down our football program. There's not enough interest in this. And we weren't seeing the same number of kids who were really excited about this. Having that taken away from them with that coronavirus that nobody likes to talk about anymore, and then having a combination of that and a combination of adding in outstanding people into this organization, that being Football Ontario with like Aaron Giesler and JT, who we just heard from, means that we see these numbers astronomically of people coming in. They had a few different ID camps, like you were saying here. One's in Toronto, one out in the Hamilton region, one up in Sudbury, and you're bringing in a grand total of almost 400 kids to have that tryout. So then whittle that down to 250, and now whittle that down to 90, and eventually after this, the top 45 who will be a part of that Team Ontario. But you think about where the game was with young people to start and where it is now. My goodness, this is just such an incredible showcase of not just people's reinvigorated love of the game, of our great game that we love so much, but the right people at the top to really help guide us into that direction.
Most definitely. And what's so great of the way you were just outlining that is it really goes back to how this organization is living what they speak of in terms of football for all, leaving no stone unturned, not letting, whether it's a worry of a financial burden or barrier, prevent a young athlete, male or female, from being able to experience all the great things of this game. Obviously, we're about half hour away from the kickoff. We want to start talking about some of the great players, some of the great coaches at this event. But we alluded to it, JT alluded to it when we had him on, of talking about the OSFL Senior Bowl that was happening here last night, or yesterday, I should say, that you played a large part in. Because for a lot of folks, especially those who are familiar with the OSFL game, you think U18, and you're thinking, well, those are typically your grade 11, grade 12 student athletes. Your U16 are typically representing your JV, your junior football players, 9 and 10. It's a little different here when we talk about Canada Cup. The team we just saw finish up, the U16s, it's truly U16, meaning those are grade 8s and grade 9s. The athletes we're seeing take the field now to warm up for this next game in the U18 bracket are grade 10, grade 11, which then, of course, leaves this vacancy for what do we do about the athletes who have perhaps played in these games before, made their way up the ranks, but don't have this opportunity. I didn't know about this until quite recently that they were doing this Senior Bowl showcase of just that cohort, that demographic that we're talking about. Take us through that Senior Bowl that you were part of.
It was incredible to be able to showcase all of those kids that you just mentioned who don't have the opportunity to be in something like this. It was hastily put together. I think it's the nicest way that I can kind of describe that. We did have a very long day yesterday, roughly 14 hours of football between 2-3 hour practices and then a game afterwards, and obviously everything else in between. But once again, to see these kids here, and when you get into that All-Star showcase, as you have seen a number of times, you just get kids who want to learn, who want to be there, who are so happy and privileged to be a part of something like this. And especially in that setting where very unique to me, the first ever iteration of an All-Star showcase in that setting. To have great kids who wanted to learn, who wanted to listen, being surrounded by quality coaches who love to be there. I mean, getting a chance to coach with a legendary guy like Phil Scarfone, MAC alum, Heck Crichton winner back in '84 as our offensive coordinator, seeing an old teammate of mine that I played with way back in the day, and Dylan Guy, and seeing, a Laurier coach, the linebacker coach, Christian, who's out there as well. He's also the defensive coordinator and head coach of the Cambridge Lions. I mean, this is just a perfect showcase of people who love football, want to get back to it. And now you're getting the opportunity to really showcase and talk about that, which is a really cool thing to be able to do.
As JT returns to the frame to pick up the phone that fell out of his pocket. It's, again, incredible showcase that they were doing. And you talk about some of the great coaches. We talked about them with JT on here in terms of what an opportunity it is. And again, we'll get to these names of both the current game that we have in store for us now and some of the games and some of the rosters and players that come before. But, when we think about some of the coaches that are here today, both on the sidelines, coaching, taking it in, who've been part of this, it's such a huge advantage for those teams.
Yes.
We think about the recruiting aspect. We think about, JT was mentioning the names like Adam Grandy, like Todd Galloway, what they're able to do to promote their program. Typically speaking, in terms of the X's and O's, it's kept relatively vanilla because you only have so much time to install an offense, install a defense, so on and so forth. But you're really selling yourself as that coach. At the end of the day, we talk about this all the time. You might call a certain play. Oh, you might refer to it by that. I might refer to it by this. You might, have your rule that it looks a little different. But there's only so many things to do in the game of football. It's really about who that person is, who that leader is that you want to go to play for 4, 5 years. This is really such a great showcase of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once again, you start talking about the quality of coaches and the quality of caliber that's here. Of course, you're going to get some of the greatest minds that are involved in football. I mean, our guy, and I know we say this all the time. It's so much, it's starting to get into a joke, but he is our guy, Coach Todd Stones Galloway. And having him here and seeing his brilliant offensive mind being able to talk to these kids. You see your guy, Joe Cap, and Donovan Carter from the Guelph Griffins. You see, obviously, the head coach and Tommy Kaniches, which, by the way, that's just an aside. I am so happy that that man is a part of a program like this, both at U of P and Team Ontario. I cannot say enough great things about Tommy Kaniches. Every time I get a chance to talk to our friend, the way that he talks about not just the game itself, but wanting to grow the game, wanting to promote the players, wanting to do this the right way, winning the right way, treating people the right way. I have nothing but admiration for that man, and to see him be successful means that this entire province is going to be successful, and definitely is the guy that I would want leading this. Now that I'm done talking about that, but you just get an idea of the caliber of coaches. I mean, the offensive line coach, Coach Irv, he's been a part of offensive line for a number of years. He's forgotten more about offensive line than either of us have learned about it. To have a guy like that be involved in this and see all of the other U Sports coaches, it really is just a testament to how much this game and this organization means to them.
Absolutely. And again, huge shout out here at Warrior Field, University of Waterloo, the staff, as JT mentioned. Of course, big shout out to the one who really keeps it up and running here in Marianne Bond. Nothing happens here without her. Let's talk about, though, some of the players that are on the field. You mentioned Coach Kaniches and the efforts he's putting in leading this group of young men and this group of coaches. He was able to provide us with a little bit of insight into some of these players that we're going to be watching. And I want to set you up to take us through some of these guys that we want to watch. It was a pleasure for me going through the roster, seeing some guys I coached in the London area that I'll no doubt highlight as we go through it. But there's some really impressive young men that we're going to be seeing out here on the field. And maybe before you even set that up, if folks haven't figured out where are they going to be tuning into the game itself.
You can tune in to Football Ontario's website. They'll have a link. They'll also be live on their YouTube page. So make sure after you're done watching us, don't go anywhere yet. But after you're done watching us, make sure you tune into that as well. You'll be able to see the entire game with some great commentary as well into that. But to talk about some of the players here, I mean, there's a number of kids that that are out on this field. So I'm excited to see what your thoughts are. But even just a couple of guys that I've really liked. I mean, we've got a number here. One kid that keeps coming up. I've been to a number of different showcases. I've seen a number of great plays from this young man. The offensive lineman, Owen Crack. Of course, I got to talk about a Hamilton kid and a Hamilton O-lineman to start things off here. But this is a young man who's really impressed with not just his power, his capability, the smarts that he has, but it's the versatility that he can play damn near any position. He listed at 6'3", about 300 pounds. He plays for the Junior Ticats at this moment, but he's got that ability at that 6'3" and 300. He's still able to move relatively well. He naturally plays tackle for his high school team, but at the next level will be moved in at that guard position, maybe even center. And I have loved to see him because he's got that dog mentality where you got to rip a dude off a pile because he's just getting after it. So that's a guy that I'm going to be actively looking in, and I think he's going to really do some special things today for sure.
Well, and I love that you highlight how not only has the athleticism, the versatility, but the mindset to come into an event like this where in theory, based on what his reputation is at the high school level, playing out of Cardinal Newman, I want you to speak to that program as well, what it means when you see a player come out of that school. To be able to come into the situation and say, I'm a left tackle, I'm a right tackle, I'm a this, I'm a that. It's one of my biggest bugaboos when I meet a young athlete, just sticking with the O-line when you ask, what position do you play in? You know, to me, especially at this age group, doesn't matter they're the U18, doesn't matter if some of these guys are getting major looks at the next level. You're an offensive lineman. You're a lineman. You're a football player. That's what gets you on the field the fastest. What gets you on the field is ultimately what they should be striving for to be able to do out here. Again, the size is incredible. The athleticism that you spoke of, we'll be seeing it. But again, obviously a lot of folks know about the Junior Ticats program. But Cardinal Newman specifically, obviously out of the Hamilton area. We see sometimes some players coming out of there, don't we?
Yeah, between the Hamilton football community, certainly over the past few years, it's been St. Thomas More and Cardinal Newman that have really just produced some of these top quality athletes. Those are your U Sports players. These are the OUA players of the future here. It's no surprise that he's another guy coming out of that esteemed program. Somebody that we actively have to deal with when I'm coaching the extra buff as well, which is a big pain. But it's really fantastic to see that. A couple of other offensive linemen to start with. Oren Nadine, 6'7", 15 pounds, as a quote, a tower of a young man that loves to finish his blocks. Extremely coachable and has a want to be the best. I cannot think of a better description for an offensive lineman than something along those lines. I mean, he will be certainly one of the highly touted offensive lineman going into this, somebody that we're actively looking into here for sure.
And much like we just spoke about a guy out of the Hamilton region where you have a lot of that expertise and know-how, we're now talking about a guy coming out of Corpus Christi, Burlington, Ontario, a Stampeders guy, again, all in your backyard, all in your area of expertise. Again, for folks who don't know, we're talking Golden Horseshoe football right now. It's the real deal. Talk to us a little bit about what that means to you, seeing guys continually come out of that region where obviously you got your start as well.
Well, it means so much because the Golden Horseshoe area football had such a huge part of my life, obviously growing up there and being a part of some of those great organizations, playing in Burlington for the Stampeders back in the day, seeing that level of greatness return back to there. And Coach Pete Wilson, head coach for the UA team, he's doing a fantastic job out there as well. They're going to be they're going to be one of the highly touted OSFL teams going into this one as well. But just seeing another offensive line coming out of the Burlington region, the Hamilton region, that just fires me up, man.
Most definitely. And if you can't tell on the broadcast, I mean, it doesn't matter that it's May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. It wouldn't be May in Southwest Ontario if it wasn't raining and kind of chilly out here. Nonetheless, if you are planning to be out here, get your butt out here. It's going to be a great event. Warrior Field, University of Waterloo. It is a place to be. We're going to keep it rolling with the offensive line commentary, Tom. If for no other reason, and again, it was one of my guys I used to coach out here that we saw earlier. And here's the fun thing when you coach kids at this age is that I haven't seen him in 2 years. I see him and I'm like, oh my God, you're a man. Holy smokes. We got a guy coming out of the St. Andrews program, has worked under now former coach from that program, but your former teammate in Matt Sewell, also a major piece of the U16 Team Ontario program here. That being Carson Medcalf out of St. Andrews. Coach Sewell's not there anymore, but just knowing that he's had the opportunity to have worked for Coach Sewell, your former teammate, old Big Bear, of those championship Marauder teams. Gosh, I'm giving a lot of love for Hamilton football right now. How do you feel about seeing someone that was coached underneath Matty Sewell?
Well, as soon as you see a big body who's able to move, and then you start questioning, okay, how much does he know? What were his coaches like? And you see Coach Matt Sewell, Big Bear, as he's affectionately known, and he earns that nickname, standing all of 6'9", and I think even in his slim down feature, he's like 300 pounds, and he looks fantastic. Having a guy like that with his experience, not just playing for McMaster in those Vanier Cup years, but actually going down for a training camp at the Tennessee Titans and then going out to the Argos as well. That's a wealth of knowledge that he had, along with a love of the game. So this young man, Carson Medcalf, has got the best case scenario here, and he's another guy who's going to be highly looked after. Offensive linemen are always at very high demand, but the three guys that we talked about in particular for Team Red here, I think are really going to stick out from the rest.
And I'll certainly give a shout out to the guy I mentioned in passing, but Zach Patton out of the Junior Mustang and Woodstock Wolverine program, the London area. Again, those farm boys are just made a little bit differently. Again, here we are out Warrior Field at the University of Waterloo, getting set for the U18 Showcase Red Black Weekend to see who will represent Team Ontario in the Canada Cup. As we talk to with JT there, we'll get to some more of these players, but now having the target on their back, they always say the hardest championship to win is that next one, to win that second cup. Now you were, of course, to sort of switch gears a little bit, but in a similar vein, part of very, very glorious championship team at the University of McMaster. Talk to us a little bit about what it was like for you guys having won a championship in 11 and then going back to back in 12, that idea where now all of a sudden, if you were unsung by any means, and that was a team with not only the likes of yourself, Matty Sewell, but Kyle Quinlan at quarterback, where it's hard to underrate you, but whenever you play in a league with the Western Mustangs, it's always going to be somewhat second fiddle. just that aspect that for the 45 of the 90 here that will be representing Team Ontario, knowing that they're going to be heading out east with that target on their back, knowing that they won gold last year. Talk to us about your experiences having been in a similar situation at the youth sport level.
The biggest asset that they could possibly bring to this is just treating it like it's another game, treating it like you haven't won anything. Yesterday has happened. You celebrated it already. This is the new year. This is how we go. One of my favorite aspects of this in terms of that mentality, once again, by a guy that I already appreciate and admire very much, and Coach Michael Falls.
Let's go.
Talking about this at the Laurier general meeting that happened just the other day. He never, ever puts on any Yates Cup championship winning apparel, ever. Not at his time at Western, not now at Laurier. He doesn't acknowledge it, doesn't see it. If he does have any rings, they are off in the corner. He never puts them on because, as he says, I live where my feet are, and my feet are here, not in the past. That's the best mentality to bring to this, especially if you want to try and get back to those championship games. Because the moment that you start sitting on your laurels, that's when you're already a step behind everybody else. You think, oh, you know what? We won this last year. We don't have to work as hard. We don't have to do these things. The nice benefit to these guys is that you might have a number of kids who were on the team last year as well, but you've got a brand new crop of kids who are in this who are just as hungry, if not more so, to win their own championship and to get back into form there. So I'm really excited to see where this team is and how they bring their own stamp to this.
And I love that you brought up Coach Falls and his Laurier Golden Hawks in that, because they're obviously having to deal with the likely contingency plan of who's going to replace Heck Creighton Award winner and Taylor Elgersma. One of the players waiting in the wings to perhaps get his shot is one Riley Chalmers, leading that Canada Cup team last year, coming out of Toronto, the Northern Red Knights program in Midtown Toronto, leading them to that gold medal win for Ontario last year. And talking about big shoes, those are now being filled in problems. We'll talk some defense at some point here. But by one Hayden Bushik, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name, coming out of the Cambridge Lions program. Again, Coach Kanichis was very kind to give us some notes on what's making him a spectacular quarterback for Team Red in this program on this day. What's some of the things that folks need to look out for with Hayden?
Well, even just taking a piece from what Coach Kanichis said, the arm to stretch the field vertically and enough athleticism to steal you first downs and make plays happen with his feet. That's one of the best qualities you could possibly have in a Canadian quarterback. Even just getting a chance to watch him in limited reps with our ID camp that we went to, you can see that this kid very easily sticks out from the crowd here. I think he's really got a live arm, and I really respect what he's able to do within the pocket, but he is able to make guys get out of the pocket and not feel like he just has to run, but can also find different guys, can find guys, and always has his eyes downfield, which is a great quality in a quarterback to have.
And on the other side of the ball is one Jack Day coming out of the Kingston area, been part of Team Ontario for some years, playing with the U14s as well, going back a few years now. We're looking now at the Team Black QB. They'll be on the field. What are some of the notes to look out for this young kid?
Well, Kingston Grenadier, and those guys can really pump out some quality players. I mean, one of my guy, Marshall Ferguson, a Kingston Grenadier guy, a number of other dudes who are down there. Kingston football is fantastic. But he really just showcases a fantastic ability to be coached. You know, a lot of the times when you're a quarterback going into this league, you have to have the confidence to when you go in there to say, you know what, that 30-yard corner route with a DB draped over, I can make that throw. I can get that in there. And there needs to be a certain level of confidence that gets in there. And oftentimes that can also lead into, well, I'm not going to listen to you, coach, because you're telling me something else and I want to do this. To have a kid like Jack Day, who is ready and willing to be coached from the get-go, I think speaks volumes to what his capabilities can be at the next level. I mean, once again, someone that will continue to develop because he brings the right attitude and demeanor in his development. A direct quote from head coach Tommy Kanichis. This is why this kid is so highly sought after. Sitting at 6'2", 200 pounds.
Love to see it.
That's a big quarterback with a big arm. You can sit back there pretty comfortably, still see over your offensive line. And when you bring that positive attitude and that willingness to be coached, the world opens up for you, along with the fantastic athletic ability that this young man has.
Tom, we have about 13 minutes to go here. Again, live from Warrior Field, University of Waterloo, getting ready to kick off the U18 Red-Black game to see who will be representing Ontario in the Canada Cup. I'd be remiss not to talk about one of my guys maybe before we switch over to the defense side of the ball, representing Team Red coming out of the London area as well. my guy Engaged Lincoln, who you're going to be seeing out on the field. I think he was wearing number 5 on his tracks jersey. Don't know what he's wearing on the field, but you know what? He's a bit of an undersized receiver, but he is lightning quick. The proverbial can turn off the light switch and be in his bed before the lights go off. He is so fast. He is so agile. But what I love most about this kid, and he brings all those intangibles as well that you talk about, the willingness to be coached and to be a leader as well, is that he is so strong. You know, the proverbial small but mighty, and he will block, he will enter the box, and doesn't matter how big the guys you pointed out to crack block or to go pick up, he will go and do it, and then he'll go run by him on the next play for a 40-yard touchdown to boot. He'll be playing for Team Red. Again, just another player that not only coming from my own repertoire that Coach Kanich has highlighted as being a player to watch here, but, you know, it's just, again, just the pleasures and the privilege of getting to coach at this age level, seeing these kids develop is truly something special to behold. And there's a list of guys that we're still going to get to, Tom, but maybe just as we reflect on some of the players who are, again, coming through this program, who have come through this program. Talk about Riley Chalmers. Sticking with the quarterback room that this game has seen. Going back 2 years, we're seeing a now Matt Marauder and Lucas Parisi at quarterback here, along with Anthony Leo, who's doing his thing with Queens. A whole host of other guys here. 2 years ago, Jaden Gertie McDonald, who was running the ball for Team Ontario, now with Queens. Thomas Silcox, as we talked about, maybe trying to fill the shoes for Jackson Finley at free safety for Western. Andre Thompson, another London guy with Western now, who, again, I think if you know anything about how this guy plays, there should be aspirations that you're maybe seeing him going down south, maybe if he can really ball out for Western in his first few years. When you look at some of these guys that have come through, and we're barely scratching the surface. I mean, Ethan Grigorsich is on this list. Wes McLennan, another McMaster Marauder, another London area guy here. When you think about some of the players that have come through this program, it's not a surefire thing. There's no such thing in life as a surefire thing. But what do you think some of the edges, aside from just being obviously highly talented at the high school level, that maybe gives these types of players the ability to succeed at the university level?
Well, I think we were talking about it just beforehand, before we really dove into the players here, but it's the coaches. It's getting coached by U Sport quality coaches. And now suddenly you're going into a program where you decide to go into a U Sports university. Maybe it's by one of the coaches who was coaching you here. I know one of my kids that I had a chance to coach at Brebeuf, Jack Sino, phenomenal linebacker for us at Brebeuf, who was just recently committed to McMaster. And even in his first year, once again, we were talking about this previously in spring camps now, with committed kids, you're able to practice with the team. Jack Sino gets limited reps, obviously, because he's a first-year kid, whatever. But he goes into that defense, and he knows every call, every adjustment, because he was playing Adam Grandy's defense when he was here. And so to have that capabilities of not just learning a university-level quality scheme and system, but potentially using this as an opportunity to, you know what, I really like how this coach coached me up. I like how his defense is. I think I slot in really well here. I think this is a quality program that I want to be a part of. Massive advantages both to the coaches who are here, but more so to the players. Because even if you do decide to go somewhere else, you're still learning a U Sports quality system, which is going to be, at least in some regards, similar to what you're dealing with here.
And when we talk about some of the advantages as well that come with this, think about the University of Waterloo, not only obviously in hosting, but getting to show off the incredible facilities. We're obviously here with the field in the background that's so spectacular. But as we've seen time and again from the East-West Bowl to the Combines, the indoor facility they have here is seemingly second to none across the country. And, you know, to highlight another London guy who took his talents to East-West, or pardon me, to Red-Black, and now he's here in Waterloo, and one Chase Smith out of the London area as well, signing with Waterloo. So again, you wonder how much that plays into it. Chase, the defensive guy, Tom, set us up looking at some of the defensive guys to watch in this matchup. Some incredible talent across the board that we're seeing. Who are some of the folks that have been highlighted for us?
Well, listen, you've been talking a lot of London football. I'm going to keep talking about some Hamilton football. One guy that I'm really interested in seeing here, and you talk about a guy who's got the direct ability to learn from one of the best guys, is one Lucas Underhill, son of Rob Underhill. He plays defensive back, listed at 5'8", 175. He was on last year's gold medal winning team with his dad, and getting a chance to experience that must have been just outstanding for him. But he comes from that football family. Coach Rob Underhill had the opportunity to be on his team as well when he was at McMaster. He's been with Mac for a number of years. But you talk about a guy who loves the game, cares about wanting to see these kids do well. Has his kids share that very similar mentality where he wants to learn, he's willing to do really whatever is required of him. Even just to read off from here, he can play. He has the ability to play corner, half, safety, and he's a vocal leader who expects to be serious competitor for this team. There's a reason why this young man was on last year's team and was a part of that gold medal winning team. I think he's going to be just as big a contributor on this one as well.
I got to go back to one of my guys as well. Going back to to London, but going to Laurier Secondary, talk of the Rams program there, another junior Mustang. But Tayshawn Duncan, much like you've highlighted with some of the linemen on the offensive side that we talked about, the versatility that Tayshawn brings to the table. I'm imagining today he'll be more at that 3-tech position, but he has the athleticism, the size, the length that he could extend out to defensive end, either side, whether rush or quick. And he's strong enough that I think to put him in as a 1-tech. We were obviously talking with DC Donovan Carter earlier, and of course the master of the 3-4 type of guy that has that strength speed to make those types of defenses be able to go. Don't think we're seeing those types of defenses here today necessarily, but again, the versatility he brings and the coachability and just the love of the game that's so spectacular. You gotta love to see it here. Tom, we are in the home stretch here, just under 6 minutes to go. Let's talk a little more defense, some of the players that Coach Kanicha has us watching out for today.
One of the guys that I think has stuck out to me based on, I think I have this number correct when I was watching, was linebacker Tristan Downey, listed at 6'1", 200 pounds. He's a very special athlete. To have the ability to play Sam, Mac, or Will, people don't necessarily understand what key differences there are here. I mean, as a Sam, you're expected to cover that number 3 receiver. So you have to have great route running ability, and you have to have the speed in order to keep up with those guys. At that Mac, you're meeting some of these big running backs in the hole, like our guy in Justin Pace. So that brings another level of strength and ability and just a mindset. When you really want to play linebacker at the next level, you got to have a couple of screws loose. I mean, you played with a number of outstanding ones at your time at Guelph. Guys like Ryan Chmielewski, Aram Isho, Nick Shorthill, all these guys, when you talk to them, you're like, something's off here. I don't know if you're like, you're just one bad bump away from killing somebody here. And I think that's what a level of that you see in Tristan as well, and that mentality of, I'm going to hit everything that moves, and we'll sort everything else out after.
Yeah, I know. It's that great mentality. When we had the pleasure of speaking with Devin Verisuk after he was picked number 2 overall, you could see he had a little bit of that intensity going in to that as well. And obviously the proof's in the pudding because he's an outstanding player as well. I got to highlight a couple of the Toronto guys that we have here as well. One on the defensive side, coming out of the Bill Crothers program, the Markham region, playing for the Scarborough Thunder, in D'Anthony Crosburn, listed here as a defensive back, 6', 185. The versatility, loving the contact. We love seeing out of the DBs where we know that they can stick their nose into any tackle, not afraid of a little bit of contact as the play goes on. And then to switch over just to the offensive side a little bit as well, not only a Toronto guy, but with me coaching with the U16 Junior Argos, I'd be remiss not to highlight Hugo Thomas, receiver coming out of St. Michael's. You know, you talk about some of the great football players of our era, I should say, across these sports in the OUA. St. Michael's is a school that was very prominent in that as well, and playing for Joshua Brown for the UH team here as well. Joshua Brown, a very integral figure here at Red Black as well with Team Ontario.
We do have the national anthem here, so we will at least take our hats off and pay a little bit of respect here. Although I think we should still keep talking about this. We only have about 5 minutes left, and we need to make sure that we talk about some of these other outstanding players. One of the guys I wanted to bring up, running back, Deacon Solomon, 6', 190, a kid that loves to play football. I mean, once again, you talk about how important it is to have a mentality when you walk into something like this, smiling at every opportunity he has to play, and a yes coach type of kid while being coached hard. Having that ability, once again, to be coached, to take that, not necessarily criticism, but to take that coaching and to be at the best levels and really play at your best. I think this young man is really going to showcase some outstanding work for Team Red going into this and playing behind some of those outstanding offensive linemen that we already talked about from the Hamilton region as well. I think we're really going to see some great work, and especially if it stays windy and raining like this, running the damn football is going to be a part of this game plan, that's for sure.
Well, as we talk about that connection between quarterback and receiver, it takes a lot of time to develop. Why we don't always like when sometimes we see those U-Sport OUA teams flipping back and forth as consistently as they do. Obviously, with the anthem having just played, it's near kickoff time. They're calling the captains to center field right now at the 55. You just love the branding here.
Love it.
Our friend JT, who joined us earlier, he made his way out to Guelph, Ontario, the Royal City, to start his journey in his new master's program. We'd be remiss to not highlight, speaking of the Royal City Royal Media, our guys here in Manny and Alex that helped us bring the game day live to y'all all last season. And thank you to them for being here with us, dealing with the rain and the cold, and getting some great footage throughout the day as well. Tom, final thoughts as we get ready to kick off the U18 Red Black Weekend Showcase.
Everything that I've seen from these young athletes out here out in the field tells me that this is going to be a fantastic quality game. If you're not here in the stands, you have to tune into their stream. Football Ontario on YouTube, you'll be able to find the stream there. This is going to be a great game, and this is going to decide the future of Ontario football and who's going to represent us in the Canada Cup come July.
Absolutely. And Tom, we got to also say that we're not really going anywhere as far as our broadcasting future, because we got events coming up here as well that we should probably set up as well before we call it for today.
Starting tomorrow, the East-West Bowl week will start. All of the players from across the country in those third year are going to be flying into Waterloo for another outstanding week of quality football. I'll be here partnered with Royal Media during the week, and Zach and I will be back on Saturday doing this exact kind of setup here, talking about who are the guys to watch for in an all-star showcase who are going to cement themselves as the next CFL great.
And hopefully May 10th feels a little more like May than May the 4th is right here. But May the 4th be with you, Tom. A pleasure as always. I certainly want to check out some of my kids and all these other outstanding athletes that are making today such a special event. Again, the future is here right now, and they are getting ready to kick off. So that'll be a wrap for us. You can catch Tom here all week with the East-West Bowl, and we'll be here for you at East-West next Saturday right here at the 55.